Hey everybody, Thomas Joseph here, and today we are tackling a very common conundrum. It's actually a little bit of a confusion, and that is coffee confusion. Today I'm going to share with you different ways of making coffee and the tricks and tips you need to know to have a wonderful cup of joe. To start off, the French press method, the immersion method here. This is actually what I drink at home every single morning, and it's a little bit different. The grind is slightly different. So to start with your coffee, now into my blade grinder here, I'm going to add a half a cup of coffee beans. And a half a cup of coffee beans is for 32 ounces of water. This is a 32 ounce French press here. And to translate it into grams for all of my friends that are really technical, a half a cup of coffee beans is about 45 grams, and 32 ounces of water is about 90 grams of water. So if you have one of these digital scales at home and you want to be super serious, those are the numbers you need to know. For French press coffee, you want to make sure that you're using a very coarse grind of coffee. Since this is a direct immersion where the water and the coffee grounds are going to be kind of mingling together, the infusion rate is going to happen much faster. So if you used a fine grind of coffee for this, you'd get a super strong, pretty bitter cup of coffee. And if you use something that's even a little too coarse or chunky, it's going to be a little watery, but you really want coarse grind. So I'm going to do that. So this looks pretty good. Tip it upside down. So my coffee grounds are all good, nice and coarse. Now, one tip I like to do here, guys, is to warm up my French press a little bit, because this will help in keeping your coffee nice and hot, and it will be less of a temperature shock for the coffee beans while it brews. So just swirl it around with a little bit of hot water, empty that out, take your coarsely ground coffee beans, pour them into the bottom of the French press here. When you're brewing coffee, when you're using this French press method or the chemex, as I'm going to show you, you don't want boiling water here. Bring your pot up to a boil and then turn it off and let it cool down slightly. You want between 190 degrees Fahrenheit to about 200 degrees. Not boiling. Boiling, that high heat will burn the beans. It will give you bitter compounds that will flavor your coffee and give you an undesirable cup. So this is not boiling. It's around that temperature. And now I'm going to pour the hot water over the grounds. I'm going to go up to probably the top of the frame that's holding the beaker. And with the French press, you want to stir up the coffee a little bit. So I'm going to stir it up with a spoon quickly here. I'm going to let this kind of sit and brew together for about 3 to 5 minutes. I'm gonna go 4 minutes somewhere in between. Just put this right off to the side. And when your timer goes off, that's when you're ready to drink your coffee. Now, the next method of preparation for coffee, and this is probably for the people that are super serious, this is a pour over method of coffee. And today I'm using what is called a chemex. It's kind of a larger version of a single cup pour over coffee, because this vessel here will make about enough for 2 cups of coffee. You could even go up to 3 cups of coffee. And what you're gonna need to, if you're gonna invest in this wonderful device here, you're going to need paper filters that go along with it. Now, these paper filters, they come in boxes. Some of them are circles and some of them are squares. They're usually folded for you already. And what you're gonna do is you're going to kind of create a cone with this paper filter, taking the layer of 3 and putting that towards the spout of your chemex. And now what you need to do is, again, take a little bit of water, and you're going to moisten the paper, warm up the carafe, and also what you're doing here is you're rinsing the filter. You're getting rid of any papery flavor that might exist here. So give this a little bit of a swirl, and then you should be able to pour this water right out. And now you're ready to start. So if you go into those serious third wave coffee shops, everything is done by weight. So if you're gonna buy a chemex or a pour over, invest in a scale here. I'm gonna zero it out, and that means canceling out whatever the measurement is. And so now we're ready to grind the coffee. So what I need for this recipe, I need about 50 grams of coffee, and 50 grams will be enough for 2 cups of coffee. So 50 grams for all of you out there, it's about 2/3 of a cup of coffee by volume measure. So that's going into the grinder here. And now for a pour over coffee, you're really looking for a medium fine grind of coffee. And a medium fine grind of coffee, think of sand, if you will, or a little bit of a coarse sugar. So again, same process here where we're moving the grinder up and down and pulsing at the same time to encourage as much of a uniform grind as possible. Okay, so this looks good. And so now I'm going to add it to the chemex filter. Now, this is a good way for me to check my weight to see if I do in fact get that 50 grams. Yep, 52 grams. It's gonna be a little bit of a strong cup of coffee, but it's gonna be perfect. And now what you wanna do is you want to just take the filter, or you can even just do it with the chemex. You wanna shake the grounds out so that they level out completely, and this will help with an even extraction of the coffee grinds. I'm gonna zero out my scale, and I'm going to add now the water. And in total, you're gonna need about 700 grams of water, and that's about 3 cups of water if you're measuring by volume. Again, it's the same principle here. We're not using boiling water, we're using water that's around 190 to 200 degrees. And this initial stage here, I'm only gonna add 100 grams of water, so a small portion of the water. And what I'm gonna do is moisten, or what this is called, it's blooming the coffee grounds. So start in the middle, okay, with your spout, your spouted tea kettle here. And you want to pour around in circles. You want to avoid touching the water to the outside of the filter, because what that will happen, the water will just kind of run straight down the filter and it won't bloom up or moisten the coffee grounds. So that's about 100 grams of water there. And I'm gonna let this sit for about a minute. And this is going to hydrate all of the grounds. It's gonna let any of the carbon dioxide, which is a natural gas that occurs in the coffee beans after roasting, to escape, so that when I pour the rest of the water in, there's gonna be a place for it to kind of soak into the beans and for us to get a really great extraction. So I'm gonna wait about a minute here. Now, while I'm waiting for my chemex to sit, it has been about 4 minutes for my French press coffee here. And what you need to do immediately with a French press, when your timer goes off, you need to plunge the pot, and that is just taking the filter and pushing it all the way to the bottom. This way you're not over extracting your coffee, and you should really pour this and serve it immediately, because if you leave it in this container here, guys, what's gonna happen is you're going to get a very strong and bitter coffee, because it is still in contact with those grounds at the bottom. And you should have a perfectly balanced cup of coffee. Just like this. Really very little bitterness, no acidic notes, really, actually really great, and piping hot. Now, if you wanted to, if you were the only one drinking and you wanted, multiple cups of coffee, transfer this to a thermos and it will stay warm, but make sure you get it out of the French press. So I'm gonna put this off to the side here. And it's been a minute, so now I'm gonna add the rest of the water. So in total, again, I need 700 grams of water. That's about 3 fluid cups of water. And you want to, again, start in the middle and then move the tea kettle, the spout, the water around to the outside of the coffee grounds. And then focus in on the center and pour until your scale reads 700 grams. Now, after we finish pouring the water, it's going to take about 4 to 5 minutes for this to brew. And so there we go, we got 700 grams, and now this is gonna sit for 4 to 5 minutes. It's been about 4 minutes. Our pour over here looks good. I'm gonna grab my coffee cup. Now, what you're looking for, and this is just right, you can see that the paper itself is not completely brown, and that's because we pre-moisten the paper. And this is when you know it's pretty much done. We're down to the very few last drops. You wanna remove this. Don't wait until it's completely dried out and it's not dripping anymore, because you really don't want the dregs of this brew. While this is piping hot, make sure that you enjoy. I'm gonna pour myself a little bit of a taste. Now, the body and the flavor here, guys, this should be somewhere in between the really kind of robust and rich French press and then the drip coffee, so somewhere in the middle. Really, really great, guys. So whatever you have at home, if you like the pour over method, or if you're like me and have a French press at home, Now you know the method, the ratios, the size of the grind, everything you need to know to make the perfect cup of coffee. Let us know how it's working for you right in the comment section below. And if you have any other kitchen conundrums, guys, reach out to us using the hashtag kitchen conundrums. As always, enjoy, guys.